Okay, it appears that the electronics are all working, so welcome you all to the May meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for Town of Tecumseh. Roll call. We have Paul, Tony, Laurie, and Chris here. Tom Marintut sent regrets, and Daniel may attend soon. We'll note his time when he does. We welcome Brian and Chad. Brian is gracing us with his presence tonight, so that's good.
Good evening or afternoon.
Okay, so is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from the members? Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not pecuniary in nature, but rather as an affected resident on applications B4 through B8 2022. I will be declaring a conflict of interest as a circulated resident.
Okay, you're closer to that than I am because I'm just down the road. Conflict of interest resident. Okay. So we'll see you in half an hour. No, we'll see. We'll see you when this part finishes. Any others? Seeing none. That's noted, Donna. Thank you. Minutes from our previous meeting on April 25th. Motion from anyone? Tony?
I'll make a motion to pass the minutes.
Paul? Seconded by Paul. Any addition, deletion, correction? In favor? Carried. Okay, the first application this evening is for several consents on 5881 Malden Road. See, Laurie has gone. Good. Go ahead, Donna, read the applications, please.
Applications for consent B0422 to B0822 851 381 Ontario Limited 5881 Malden Road. The purpose of the consent applications is to, number one, B04-22, sever a vacant residential lot having a frontage of approximately 30.48 meters, 100 feet, and a regular depth, and a lot area of approximately 1956 square meters, 21,054 square feet, identified as Lot 1 on the attached sketch. Number two, B05-22, sever a vacant residential lot having a frontage of approximately 30.48 meters, 100 feet, a depth of approximately 68.57 meters, 225 feet, and a lot area of approximately 2,090 square meters, 22,496 square feet, identified as Lot 2 on this attached sketch. Number three is B06-22, sever a vacant residential lot having a frontage of approximately 34.27 meters, 112.4 feet, a depth of approximately 68.57 meters, 225 feet, and a lot area of approximately 2,349.8 square meters, 25,293 square feet, identified as Lot 3 on the attached sketch. Number four is B07-22, sever a vacant residential lot having a frontage of approximately 34.27 meters, 112.4 feet, a depth of approximately 68.57 meters, 225 feet, and a lot area of approximately 2,349.8 square meters, 25,293 square feet, identified as Lot 4 on the attached sketch. Number five is B08-22, sever a vacant residential lot having a frontage of approximately 34.27 meters, 112.4 feet, a depth of approximately 68.57 meters, 225 feet, and a lot area of approximately 2,349.8 square meters, 25,293 square feet, identified as Lot 5 on the attached sketch. Number 6 is to retain an agricultural lot having a frontage of approximately 23 meters, 75.4 feet, and a regular depth and a total area of approximately 52 hectares, 128.5 acres, outlined in green on the attached sketch. The proposed severed lands are designated Maidstone Hamlet Residential in the Town of Tecumseh official plan and zoned agricultural A-33 in zoning bylaw 85-18. The proposed retained lands are designated agricultural in the Maidstone Hamlet Residential in the Tecumseh official plan and zoned agricultural A and A-33 in zoning bylaw 85-18. As a condition of approval, the application will be subject to council approval of a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the proposed severed lands from agricultural A-33 to Hamlet Residential RH for the proposed residential lots. The following correspondence was received from engineering. The severed lots are proposed to be serviced by municipal piped water and individual on-site septic facilities. We have reviewed the application in the context of the town's water and wastewater master plan and the town's official plan. The proposed severed lots are required to be serviced with municipal sanitary sewers. Municipal sanitary sewers are not available at this time. The timing of municipal sanitary sewers and upgrades to the municipal water infrastructure and support of potential development lands in the Maidstone Hamlet are addressed in the water and wastewater master plan. To permit development in advance of the municipal infrastructure being provided is premature and therefore not recommended. No comments from building, no comments from fire services. ERCA's comments are as follows. The noted lands are subject to our development interface and wetlands and alterations to shorelines and watercourse regulations under the Conservation Authorities Act, Regulation 15806. The parcel falls within the regulated area of the North Talbot Road Drain, Gibbs Drain, Pike Creek Drain, and East Branch of the Delisle Drain. The property owner will be required to obtain a permit and/or clearance from ERCA prior to any future construction or site alteration or activities affected by Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act. ERCA has been advised by the town that the proposed lot creations have no legal outlet for stormwater management solution. As a result, the proponent would have to obtain Drainage Act approvals to get a legal outlet for the proposed residential development. Should the design require a new drain extension along the frontage of the lots, Malden Road, the subject property's lot creations may be within the regulated area and the development of the lots will need a permit or clearance from ERCA. Please be advised that the subject property is already partially regulated by ERCA. It should also be confirmed that the proposed outlet for the development has enough capacity for the additional flows. The applicant will require a permit and/or clearance prior to any future construction or site alteration or other activities affected by Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act. Bell Canada has no concerns. The County of Essex comments are as follows. Regulations pertaining to the retained portion fronting County Road 46. County bylaw number 2480, bylaw of the Corporation of the County of Essex to regulate the location of buildings and structures on land adjacent to county roads. The minimum setback for any proposed structures on this property must be 85 feet from the center of the original right-of-way of County Road 46. Permits are necessary for any changes to existing structures or construction of new structures. No access will be permitted off County Road 46. No new direct connections will be permitted to County Road drains. Email correspondence was received from a resident at 12800 North Talbot Road with respect to the proposed application. The resident expressed concern with respect to the application as he was advised in the past that the severance from the property would not be supported due to the noted policies of the official plan. The resident advised that he would like to have his proposed severance approved if the sub applications are approved. And that's it.
You're muted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Somebody told me, that's good. Anybody else in the on the call who is interested in this particular application, could you please show yourselves? Turn your cameras on so I know who all's here. There he is. Hi, Tom. Anybody else? I saw Mary Ondick. Is she not? Are you not there, Mary?
I can't seem to get my screen back on. We're here.
And there was another cryptic Mac owner. Are you here for this one?
No, I'm here for the next one.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think that's everybody that I saw. So at this point, Josette or Jeanette or whoever's going to speak, I usually ask the applicant if there's anything that they would like to add besides what was in the application itself.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll address the committee if that's all right. I prepared some notes. It's probably a little easier or more comfortable if I just read them.
Sure. Whatever you want to do.
Thanks. We received the report before you late on Friday afternoon. And before I begin, I just wish to share that I was stunned by the statement in the report that we'd been advised by administration that they would not be in a position to support the applications if they were filed. At no time during our discussions was this conclusion provided. We were informed that some policies surrounding full servicing may apply, but that administration would undertake a more detailed review and consideration of our application upon submission. I'm going to highlight a little bit of background to this settlement area and outline our decision to bring this opportunity before you today. The town adopted the Maidstone Hamlet Secondary Plan OPA 9 on October 8th of 2003, following a community-based public process that included multiple visioning sessions that began in the fall of 2001. One of the Maidstone Hamlet planning principles was to incorporate key elements and patterns of the existing rural landscape. The secondary plan identified Malden Road as an original road and a character road, planned to maintain its rural cross-section fronted by single-tier residential lots of a prescribed minimum dimension designed to match the existing neighborhood. The servicing timeline for the Maidstone Hamlet in the 2002 Water and Wastewater Master Plan were identified for completion in 2010. These timelines were updated in 2020, updated to 2020 in the revised 2008 Water and Wastewater Master Plan. The current 2018 Water and Wastewater Master Plan now states that they're 20 years plus, so beyond the planning horizons, the 20-year planning horizon. Ontario and all of Canada are experiencing a housing crisis. We've been hearing about this for some time, and I understand that all levels of government are being called to work creatively to find solutions that are sustainable, finding ways to say yes to more inventory and offerings on the market. While this planned community has been a long time in the making and unfortunately continues to experience delays in approving the planned 900 dwelling units of this secondary plan area, this opportunity will generate 5 new residential lots in a settlement area that is in keeping with the community developed concept plan for this neighborhood. The future homes are infilling on an existing road with 50 existing neighbors with private sewage disposal systems who potentially were personally involved in shaping the secondary plan and asking for exactly this. Supporting 5 more homes creates intensification on a currently maintained municipal road where snow removal and garbage and recycling collection are already happening. We requested Tom Story to share his planning expertise and experience to support opening the door to more housing offerings in the town of Tecumseh. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Josette. So you're asking Mr. Story to be able to speak to this?
That's correct. Thank you.
It's okay with the committee? Okay with the committee? I see heads nodding. Okay. Tom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me a minute. Okay. Yeah, I'm not muted. Good. I'll just start out by saying as Josette mentioned, we received the planning report on Friday. I did look at it over the weekend to some extent. And I guess I'll try and keep my comments brief as I can, as much as any planner can keep their comments brief, I suppose. But I'll start out by saying, with respect, I do disagree with Mr. Jeffrey. Sorry, get my mic here. I do disagree with Mr. Jeffrey and his report on several items. The reference to the provincial policy statement and whether it's consistent or not with the PPS, which is where we start in an analysis, refers to the fact that this full services are required where there is a planned eventual date where full services will be provided. Where I come into conflict there is the use of the word planned. As Josette just mentioned, by the time this area is serviced based on the wastewater master plan today, it will have been over 40 years since the original master plan said it would happen by 2010. In my thinking, there needs to be a discussion of what planned means. In this case, I think planned in the point of view of the 2018 master plan is more along the lines of would be desirable, and it's somewhat speculative. It sure isn't a municipal class environmental assessment. There's nothing in a capital budget, as far as I can tell, that says in 5 years we'll be able to do it and we're donating funds to it. So I really question the notion that this falls under that category or not. And that also goes to the whether it's in conformity with the county official plan or not. There's also the statement that this is not considered infilling and minor rounding out, although there isn't any explanation of that opinion. He doesn't say why. He doesn't explain what would constitute infilling or minor rounding out. In my experience, I can say that we've had many applications we've dealt with, both representing the private sector and also representing municipalities, where five lots by consent was definitely falling under the infilling definition. So it seems there needs to be more discussion on that. And those are key concepts when you consider this application. My other general statement is that there were many policies of interest in the Maidstone secondary plan which weren't explored or discussed in the report. For instance, the application meets many of the the residential goals in the Maidstone secondary plan, particularly one regarding intensification. I don't want to quote too much from the OP policies here, so we'll get too bogged down. But in 11.2.3, item 3, states the intensification of residential land shall be encouraged, and standards of development that will assist in achieving this objective shall be a priority for the town. There's no discussion of what standards of development should be that would assist in achieving this objective, because having a master plan that's going on for decades and decades doesn't strike me as achieving the objective or much of a priority for the town. And don't forget, these are policies that apply to Maidstone. It also goes on, a minimum of 15% of all new housing within the town should be provided through residential infill and/or intensification. And that goes back to what constitutes infill and whether this is infill or not. And all we've got is Chad's opinion that it isn't. It also goes on to say, with regard to secondary dwelling units in Maidstone, this is a policy I think that applies to the whole town, that they can be provided on a private sewage system. In other words, if you want to build an apartment in your existing house, which is on a private system, which would be every house in Maidstone, then you're permitted to do it, provided the chief building official is satisfied the system can handle it or whether it needs to be upgraded. Not only that, it also says where these units are proposed in accessory buildings like a coach house or garage, subject to other considerations of the building code, they would be permitted there too to go on the existing private system. So there is provision for development to occur of some sort on a private system. I want to look at the consent policies. I think this is important. Under section 6, I'm sure, or I would assume most of you are familiar with them because they're applied regularly. And I won't go through each one. There's two in particular that stand out that need some explanation. Under consents will be granted only when it has been established that soil and drainage conditions for all policies involved are suitable. And under that, to permit the installation of an adequate means of private sewage disposable acceptable to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks or its designated agent, where no municipal pipe sanitary sewer collection system is available. So that's a standard consent policy. Then it goes on to say on the next item, consent shall be granted only if they comply with the provisions of the town's zoning bylaw. Where a bylaw amendment or a minor variance is necessary, it shall be a condition of the decision. And that's pretty standard fare no matter where you go. And certainly was part of the application here that eventually, assuming approval, that the applicant would need to go to council to get a zoning amendment that would permit these dwellings. Now, that is something that actually is addressed, this situation, in the Maidstone policies. I'm going to read this one to you because I think it's important. It's also 11.2.3, which is under the Maidstone. And it says, and it's item 9, the undeveloped lands that are designated Maidstone Hamlet residential, and that's these lands, and have servicing constraints, which we know they have, in the sense there's no sanitary sewer, shall be placed in a holding zone in the implementing zoning bylaw at the time development applications are being considered by the town, or at such time prior development applications as council deems appropriate. So what this policy says, when you receive a development application, which is what they will, then the town should apply the holding symbol to the zone, which would not permit development until whatever the development or infrastructure constraint is addressed. So to me, that means this committee has the ability to approve this because it meets all the consent conditions or policies. You can apply the zoning condition. You'll probably want to apply something else regarding the Conservation Authority, I suppose. And then it'll be up to the applicants to take it to the town. A less desired outcome would be to have the town approve the zoning, but for the hamlet residential, but at the same time say, that's all well and good, and we're happy to put the residential zoning on. However, it's going to be subject to the holding symbol, and you won't be able to develop until such time as for sanitary sewers. The issue of whether they're sanitary sewers or not, certainly with respect to this committee, I would say is an issue that the applicant needs to deal with council on. And I think there is reasonable arguments to be made before council to provide for different policies in this regard, particularly where there is infilling, which I think this is, on an existing strip, particularly in this era when we're looking for more development, housing development in particular. So my recommendation, Mr. Chair, is this applications, plural, be approved. And if you're unwilling to do that, I would request that you defer the application until we've had more time to make a more fulsome and comprehensive report back to you on these issues. That there are various things we need to address. So that completes my submission, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Story. A fulsome review it was. Given the issues you've raised, I think I would like to have either Chad or Brian speak to sort of the underlying elements of the report that caused you to draw the conclusion that this was premature. Your mic, please.
Brian, you're on mute.
You're muted, Brian.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. I live in the Zoom world and I still do that. So apologies. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everybody who spoke so far. I'll just do some very brief, I think, summary comments, and if there's anything Chad would like to fill in. And the only reason really I'm doing that is I was present during the development of the secondary plan, and it was a very consultative process, and I was the lead at that time on its ultimate preparation and adoption that was presented to council ultimately. So the plan certainly, and I would agree with, I think, Tom and maybe Josette as well, that the plan that is before us, the applications, do satisfy some of the elements of the secondary plan. But the secondary plan in our report really focuses on the level of servicing, and that is an important matter to the municipality. And I'll just cut to a separate issue. I apologize if there was any misunderstanding that Josette had from our preliminary meeting. I thought we were quite clear that this was not an application or applications that we'd be able to support given the absence of municipal sanitary sewers. But having said that, so what we reviewed in our report to council, which you've had time to review, and I wasn't proposing to go through in any specific detail, was our perspective, particularly on the official plan and its attempt to try and clarify that in our settlement areas in Tecumseh, I think things have evolved over time and there is a higher emphasis on full servicing. I would agree with Mr. Story that it's been a considerable amount of time since the secondary plan was adopted. And I would note that there had been a time when it was thought even a package plant might be considered an option, and that was included in the policy. But time has passed. The municipality's experience with package plants has evolved. And in the development of the updated master plan and in the development of the new official plan, that no longer is an option. So as much as we can say that it's been 40 years since that secondary plan was adopted, and that in and of itself may be the basis upon which we would allow septics, I would say the environment around which we are allowing development has evolved. And the town has invested considerable money in infrastructure, sanitary sewage trunks that are intended to serve our urban areas. And we receive the money to support those sewers when they are ultimately brought out to the development areas. And yes, although we do view the master plan as a document that indicates the planned infrastructure for the municipality, and although it may be that this area is currently anticipated at 20 or plus years, the official plan is intended to look at a 25-year horizon. And unfortunately, that is just the geography of the municipality as it stands. Now, that could happen sooner if development at the north end proceeds more quickly and the trunk that needs to move southerly makes its way down to 42, and then I believe a force main from there, if I'm not mistaken. So for Maidstone Hamlet specifically, the plan does speak very much to the issue of full services to allow development. And that is common from our perspective. On the issue of placing into a holding zone, we agree with Tom. It could be placed into a holding zone, but what the holding zone is saying from our perspective is that development won't proceed until there's full services. So I do believe that the committee, it's within their mandate under the Planning Act to have regard to a number of items that perhaps Mr. Jeffrey could review that from our perspective aren't met on these applications. And the Planning Act is rather specific. One of them is that there's adequate infrastructure. And that is something that the committee should turn its mind to. And we feel that our report is a summary of the basis upon which the applications we aren't able to support them. So those are really my comments for the moment, Mr. Chair, and Chad may want to add something as well.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to address a few points that Mr. Story raised. He's right. We did just say that we didn't consider this to be infilling and intensification. And that's because those two terms are not defined in any of the documents that we use to review it, unfortunately. So we're left with an professional interpretation of what infilling and the rounding off means. And typically infilling is exactly that, infilling space between two existing dwellings, which isn't the case here. This is an extension of a tier of dwellings. In terms of rounding off, that's from the research we did on that term, because again, it's not a well-defined term anywhere. It's to provide a symmetry to a settlement area boundary, but it's not intended to facilitate continued incremental growth, which is how we categorize what's proposed here. So on those two issues, you're right, we didn't elaborate. We just concluded that we didn't believe it to be infilling and rounding off. And despite that, the position on this application does come down to, and Brian just reviewed it, in my mind, 11.2.5.2, where it says that all development, and this is under the Maidstone Hamlet servicing policies, and it specifies that all development in the Maidstone Hamlet will be serviced by municipal sanitary sewers in accordance with section 8.2 of the plan. When you go to 8.2 of the plan, which is in my report, our report, because we did collaborate on this, it's a fairly significant application. As Brian mentioned, he was involved in the development of the Maidstone Hamlet plan, and he had the meeting, the pre-submission meeting with the Sylvesters, and I wasn't able to attend that. So we collaborated on this. The policy under 8.2.2 says that higher order forms of servicing, including full municipal water and sanitary sewer services, are the preferred form of service infrastructure and will be required for all development in town settlement areas. And it goes on to specify an exception. That exception is for lands which were previously designated and zoned for development, and the approved form of servicing at the time was municipal piped water and individual on-site sewage services. In that respect, this didn't qualify. It was not zoned for development. And that's a policy that pertains to areas of the old Castle Hamlet for which there's a plan to ultimately fully service. But in the interim, that policy allows for the continued development there. But it doesn't apply in this case. So, Mr. Chair, those are the matters that we reviewed when establishing our position on this. We think it's a very specific, clear policy under the servicing policies in the Maidstone Hamlet secondary plan policy section. And it's for those reasons that we couldn't support the application.
Okay, thanks, Brian and Chad. I think the only other people around are the Ondiks. And I expected, did you want to speak or no?
Not really. We're just interested in the same possibilities. That's all. I see houses going up on the concessions. They must have septic systems. So, for 5 or possibly 10 lots, what's the big deal if none of the rest of the agricultural property is going to be, used up? That's all. We're just interested in the outcome as it affects us too.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Mary. Committee want to speak or ask questions or delve into this? Paul?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Josette, there's a question for you. These lots, potential lots, the only servicing I understand that they don't have would be sewer. So could you tell me a little bit about the septic system maybe you have in mind? I know there's new septic systems, EcoFlow, different certain septic systems that you have in mind for these lots? Just educate us a little bit on the septic system you might put in. These, are they the same as the old? Are you upgraded? I know every year there's new technology on these systems.
Thank you for that question. So you're correct. There's always been, I guess, new advancements and upgrades to septic systems. The wonderful thing about these particular 5 lots is that they are larger in size, matching what's in that existing neighborhood. So septic systems would fit very well. The homes are set back from the roadway if you've taken a little drive down that neighborhood. So it would fit very well, and of course it would be the modern system that people are using these days. Thank you.
Anything else, Paul? No? Okay, anybody else? Tony?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess my question would be more for administration. Can you give me a history of the adjacent properties and how they came to be, whether that was through a plan of subdivision or those were through severances over the years as well?
I'll begin because I think most, as in maybe roughly 90% or greater, were there prior to me even starting at the town, which was 2000. In around I'll just throw a rough date out, 1997, I think, the former township adopted a new official plan, Sandwich South, I should say, township. And that document, it was an interesting document because it expanded all of the settlement areas, Tecumseh Hamlet to the north, which is up north of 42, Old Castle Hamlet over to the northwest here from Maidstone, and then Maidstone Hamlet as well. And they all had significant lands added to them on the predication that in order for the former township to ever come to some sort of servicing solution of its own without having to have a discussion with the city, which was quite a challenging issue at that time. They needed to have a landmass that would support that. So back before that, what you would have seen was sort of I'll just call it the strip along Malden and 34, and then there's the little street, I just can't think of the name of it, that runs, it just shoots off to the east there. It's a quaint little cul-de-sac. That came in sometime in the 80s, I think, 90s. Of course, there's not a name on this map. So most of those
Blair
happened
Woods.
in that era. Sorry? Did someone?
Blair Woods.
Oh yeah, Blair Woods.
Have
Yeah,
another-
that's it. And that's just it, right kind of down at the bottom corner there. And that's the chair can probably correct me. I think that's from the 80s or early 90s, but again, it predates my time. So the majority of these were during that earlier era. Hopefully that helps, Tony.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Did that generate any other questions, or does anybody have other questions? Chris?
Through you, Mr. Chair. As the question of a hold provision was brought up to administration, just curious, is there a reason that we should, that approach should be discouraged, or that approach is less ideal? I don't know if the committee can place a condition like that on here, since those provisions are probably handled by council. We don't really have the authority to add provisions, like a hold provision to a zoning. So we could just flush that out a little bit as that potential approach was raised.
Yeah, I'll maybe just start, because I recollect that policy when it was developed. What the plan is doing, it's giving a choice. We can go in and pre-zone the land that is for future development, I'll call it, although it's designated Hamlet, Maidstone Hamlet residential. And then flowing from that, it gave the choice where lands could be pre-zoned with holding zones. And so it would set out the minimum lot sizes and so on. Or what it's saying is that at the time development proceeds by way of a plan of subdivision, you can go forward with that and put the holding zones in at that time of the development applications. And the holding is predicated to be removed at the time you have services available. So really the matter before the committee tonight isn't so much the mechanics of how the zoning comes in, or if it's a holding or not a holding. It's the appropriateness of the lots being created in the first instance. And again, without belaboring it, from our estimation, the plan and the intention is that services be available prior to lots being created. And so that's not the situation we're in. Quite often with development, there could be other factors where you're placing, as the development moves forward, it's placed into holding zones to ensure that all matters are addressed. Sorry. And that's not the case here.
Thank you.
There we go. It does appear to me that there may be some room for discussion to flesh out a discussion about timing or whatever, between the applicant and the town, because the bottom line is the layout of that Maidstone Hamlet area and the conditions and the requirements and the suggestions about how it should proceed are there, but nothing's been done about them. So maybe what we need to do is have planning and stakeholders in the area discuss how that might ever be done. I am a little concerned about piecemealing the whole thing, even to the extent of leaving room for a road, without sort of an overall thing about how it might work. But given that, I heard somebody say, I think Mr. Story did say, I forget who it was, that the committee was of a mind not to allow this, that they would like it to be tabled, or give them an opportunity to have further discussion with planning and with infrastructure people at the town. Josette? Jeanette, Jennifer?
I just wanted to add something. I thought, I know you need services, but we could put these lots, because they're huge, on septic and make a provision to have the septic removed when sanitary is available in the next 20, 30 years. We've spent considerable time and money on this project, and it's a great location. It's a great location. We just don't have the services or a way to get them. So if we could put a septic for now, with provisions that they be removed when the sanitary is available, it would provide 5 lots, which is something everybody's trying to get, is some property where you can build a house. And it complies with the plan. It leaves the road where it's shown on the plan for the secondary plan. Everything stays the same. There's nothing affected other than you've allowed 5 houses to proceed. And I think it's infilling.
During the housing crisis.
And Ontario, the whole province is trying to get some houses.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. We already have another person saying, me too. And what do we do with that? So actually we have 2 other people who are interested in me too, which means we're going down that road of piecemealing this development without a full discussion and understanding about what's going to happen at the end of it. I hear you saying kind of an automatic petitioner thing. There's a whole village here there's a whole village here that at some point may need to benefit from sewers, but we'll see about that. But I think, I don't know, what does the committee think about that idea, that we defer this for further discussion between the applicant and the town to float some other ideas of what could be done or what is the future here? Brian, you're making a face to me. You okay with that, or?
I am not intentionally making a face. No. No, I'm just waiting to see what the comment is. I mean, I think we've sort of made our comments, but if that's the wish of the committee, we'll do what the committee wishes. I think I saw Tom maybe turn his mic off. I wasn't intending to make a face, but apologies in that regard.
No, you were pursing your lips, so I thought you had something to say.
Oh, no. I've been
Anyway.
off all day today, so this is my first time in the air conditioning, so I'm just here for this.
I've been off for a month, so. I guess what occurs to me is that as a committee, we would be making a decision on how this thing will proceed, because once we open the door, it's going to be hard for us to not do the same thing for the next one and the next one and the next one. And I'm pretty sure that there is a pressure in the development world to provide lots to build houses on. So I'm just a little concerned about doing something without fully thinking it through. So, but I'm just the chair. I'm at the committee's whim on that. Tony?
Mr. Chair, I totally agree with you. I mean, we allow 5 here, then it becomes 10, then it becomes 15 and 20, and it just keeps on going from there. I don't see any point of doing the severance and putting holding symbols on it if we're not going to allow the development. At that point, I would just rather do it correctly with the municipal services at the road and have it done with, whether it be through the plan of subdivision at that time and so on. In my mind, that defined term of infill, through all my years, this, in my mind, this is not infill, this is expanding the use. The infill is when you're just, it's in between two adjacent properties with similar zoning, and that this is not the case. So whether we send it back to planning and see if something can be worked out at this point, but at this point, I just see there's too many items that have to be worked out at this time before we could approve this.
Okay. Anybody else? Paul or Chris?
I believe Josette and her mom had her hand up there. I wouldn't mind listening to her first before I make my comment.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that ours are, the plan is etched in stone. It's in the secondary plan, in the official plan. The roads are laid out. These are 5 lots or 4 lots, whatever it is, but they follow the plan. We've allowed a collector road to go into the subdivision. So we'd just be starting the subdivision on a septic tank with those 5 lots to be removed when the sanitary is available, which is no time soon.
Yeah, so I guess the point is that these are consistent with the secondary plan that was very detailed, and in particular on Malden Road, asking for those larger lots fronting Malden Road specifically. So they are not, I guess, haphazard. They are planned.
And they're following the
And-
secondary plan.
And they do match the
Yeah.
plan. Thank you for the
Thank you very
opportunity to
much.
comment.
Thank you.
Okay. Paul?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Can we get the map up again that we were looking at before with all the lot lines? Yeah. Again, so I guess my comment is that I'm looking down at it, and it definitely matches the Maidstone Hamlet. Now, the services we know that aren't there, but in my opinion, in my experience, that septic system is a good system, even more so to these dates. I believe that the people that are going to be installing these septic systems are be no different than any, or way better than any one of our houses, especially in the Blair Woods, that have never had a problem, or in Old Castle Hamlet, and that we never have problems or callbacks or anything on these septic systems. And have you, this isn't the plan. They already have water, of course. Their sidewalks are going right past the lots that are going to be made. It matches the area again, like I said, especially like Blair Woods, and also I think it'll complement the Maidstone Hamlet area. Regardless, other neighboring municipalities like Kingsville are doing this exact same thing on County Road 34, along County Road 34, where there is agricultural, and also on Cameron Side Road. And these are just a few that I know of. And saying that, I'd like to put a motion on the floor, if through you, Mr. Chair, if that's okay.
You have the floor.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve application B0422. And the reason is for that it does meet conditions, in my opinion, and that.
What's that? Is that a
No, that's the other lot near
that
46.
the septic that
Permitting hasn't
I live
even
on,
been-
and also all my neighbors, and I know everybody in Maidstone is on, and I to this day I don't hear of any problems of anybody coming down to inspect ditches or flow of water or color of water coming out of Maidstone Hamlet. So therefore I go to make a motion to approve this application.
Okay. So Chris or Tony? Looking for support. There's a motion been made. I don't see anybody jumping up and down. So I would say that motion is lost. Is there any other motion, Tony?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess my one would be either we defer it for time to see if we can work some issues out, or at this point, I would be in the position to make a motion that these severances are denied for all the reasons that are set out in the planning report.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to get off the fence and either make a motion to defer, or which one? Choose one.
Would that be more for the applicants if they choose to defer it, or?
In their presentation, they sort of said that they would rather have it happen that way if we were going to turn it down, I think.
Okay, so I would motion to
like an
defer it at this
opportunity
time
to-
then.
I'm sorry?
I would make a motion to defer it at this time.
Okay, for further discussion between the applicant and administration. So,
Correct.
okay,
Correct.
Supported by Chris. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Yeah, carried. Okay. So Brian and Chad, get your running shoes on. I'm sure you'll have visitors. And thank you, Tom, for your presentation as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nice to see you again.
Okay. Next is application for consent, Maria Grazia, 4155 Manning. So whoever's here to talk about this one.
Hello, Mr. Chair. My name is Mary Watson.
Mary Watson. Donna?
Excuse me, application for consent B0922 Maria Grazia Watson, 4155 Manning Road. Purpose of the application is to request consent to sever a surplus dwelling lot having a frontage of approximately 57 meters, 187 feet, a depth of approximately 102 meters, 334.6 feet, and a lot area of approximately 0.58 hectares, 1.43 acres, outlined in red on the attached sketch. The proposed severed lot will encompass the existing tree line, house, and accessory building. The retained farm parcel, outlined in green on the attached sketch, has an approximate lot area of 32.65 hectares, 80.6 acres, and contains 2 farm buildings. A zoning bylaw amendment will be required to prohibit a residential dwelling on the retained lands and to address the oversized lot area of the proposed surplus dwelling lot. The lands are designated agricultural in the Tecumseh official plan and zoned agricultural in zoning bylaw 85-18. The following correspondence was received. Town engineer, that the owner enter into and provide the town of Tecumseh a written agreement for the reapportionment of the drainage assessment for the subject lands in accordance with section 65(2) of the Ontario Drainage Act 1990 as amended, and that the associated costs of same be borne solely by the applicant. That the applicant be required to provide and implement an engineered drainage and grading plan prepared by a qualified professional engineer for the parcel to be severed to ensure that runoff from the severed parcel is prevented from flowing onto the retained parcel to the satisfaction of the town of Tecumseh chief building official prior to the severance being finalized. That the applicant be required to modify any subsurface drainage tiles that are located on the parcel to be severed to disconnect them from subsurface drainage tiles on the parcel to be retained to the satisfaction of the town of Tecumseh chief building official prior to the severance being finalized. No comments from building, no comments from fire services, and IRCA's comments are as follows. The lands are subject to our development interface with wetlands and alteration to shorelines and watercourse regulations under the Conservation Authorities Act, Regulation 15806. The parcel falls within the regulated area of the Sullivan Creek Drain, Pike Creek Drain, East Town Line Road Drain, and H.G. Arnold Drain. The property owner will be required to obtain a permit and/or clearance from the Essex Region Conservation Authority prior to any future construction or site alteration or other activities affected by Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act. The municipal drain typically has an unregistered working space. The municipality has the right to use, to maintain or repair the drain. In addition, specific building setbacks from a municipal drain are applicable. Please contact your local municipality's drainage superintendent for more information. With a review of background information and aerial photograph, IRCA has no objection to the application for consent, but a permit or clearance is required for all future construction and/or site alterations under Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act. No concerns from Bell Canada. The County of Essex comments are as follows. The minimum setback for any proposed structures on this property must be 85 feet from the center of the original right-of-way of County Road 19. Permits are necessary for any changes to existing entrances and structures or the construction of new structures. No new access will be permitted off County Road 19. No new direct connections will be permitted to County Road drains. We are requesting a copy of the decision on the aforementioned application. Should these applications be approved, we are requesting a copy of the revised survey plan of the subject lands in order to update our mapping records.
Okay, thanks, Donna. Ms. Watson, do you want to speak to this? I usually give the applicant a chance to say what might have been missing or whatever from the application.
No, I don't really have anything to say other than, our intention is to sever the surplus dwelling. So,
Just sever, I'm sorry, say that again?
to sever the surplus dwelling
Oh, surplus.
from the farm.
Yep. So there is a spot, maybe you can help us with this. There is a spot on the north side of the farm where there used to be a dwelling that was taken down in order that there only be one dwelling on the property.
Right.
And I believe that has already been settled and so what, do you have a comment on rezoning the farm to not allow any more houses?
No, other than that's the condition. I don't believe that we would be allowed to build another dwelling on the farm, would we?
No, that was the point of my question, to make sure that you
Yeah,
understood
no.
that.
Yeah, I understand that, yes.
Okay. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Motion. Lori.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A very straightforward application for severance of a surplus dwelling. The planning report also lays out some recommended conditions typical of a severance, in addition to, I believe, was there anything that was different than a typical? Let me just quickly look through that. While we're pulling that up, actually, let's just quickly reiterate that the application is in keeping with the intent of the zoning bylaw and official plan, is consistent with the policies of the PPS. And well, even though, actually, if I could, before we make that motion, Chad, any to Mr. Jeffrey, any conditions that are not typical of a consent that are laid out in the report?
Mr. Chair, there's nothing that the committee hasn't attached as conditions to these types of severances in the past. So there's nothing that should shock the applicant or the committee. But if you'd like, I can go through the conditions that are recommended in the report.
But that's okay. Just to follow up on that, Mr. Chair, just a move to approve the application for consent to sever with the recommendations as laid out in the planning report. And it's a good catch on Mr. Jeffrey's part as well, in that the applicant now has 2 years to fulfill those conditions. You're on mute, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't going off for me. Thank you. There's a motion. Seconder? Paul? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I assume you had your hand up, Paul. Okay. Hey, you're good. So I think there's 20 days for an appeal period if somebody wants to. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, it's pretty standard. I did get a note during the other meeting, and I've lost it, from Amaja, who is in the wind there somewhere, who said they can't get their camera working, and they wanted to say something about this one. So let me I think we've already voted, so I don't know what I'm going to do with this.
Hello, this is Maya here. I don't know if you guys can hear me. We're having a little bit of technical issues here.
You're muted again, Mr. Chair.
Why am I? Put up another screen over top, then the unmute doesn't work. Let me see. And I put up the screen to see Maya's comments. And she said to me, "We're having trouble with our camera. We respectfully like to," well, it should be different wording, but we respectfully like to decline the decision to retain the lands for residential purposes. Maya, what's your connection with all this? Are you a neighbor or what?
We are.
Oh, another message. We're a house in the middle at 12,528 baseline. Can you find that, Chad? This is a case where the technology is messing us up.
Just give me 2 seconds, Mr. Chair, please.
Yeah, no problem. I'm sorry, Mary, give us a minute to get this sorted out, okay?
I believe you said 12,528, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
12,528.
So this is that.
Oh, and this, okay. Surrounded by all of this. Yeah, there you go. That location completely went by me. Well, anyway, Maya, can you help with what your problem is with this application? Maya, are you there? We'd like to see it stay agricultural.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
if I may, through the chat function, Maya shared that they're the middle house, which we've noted, and that they would like to see it stay agricultural. Across the street is all woods. So I believe that she's under the misconception that there can be some residential development on that property.
right.
When, as you mentioned earlier, that's not the case. It has to be rezoned to prohibit a residential dwelling on the retained farm portion.
So the farm will not be developed. Maya, do you understand that? Okay. Good. Thank you very much. Okay, that's sorted out. So we don't have to do anything more. We've already passed the, and it satisfied Maya's issues, so that's good. So, thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Donna, next.
Application for minor variance, CMR Investments, Inc., 2165 Highway 3. The purpose of the application is to request relief from the following subsections of zoning bylaw 85-18. Subsection 10.1.11, which establishes a minimum rear yard depth of 7.5 meters, 24.6 feet, and subsection 5.33, which establishes that 46 parking spaces are required, including 2 barrier-free. The proposed relief will facilitate the construction of a new commercial building having a rear yard depth of 3 meters, 9.8 feet, and a total of 18 parking spaces, including 1 barrier-free space in accordance with the site plan shown. The property is designated general commercial in the Tecumseh official plan and zoned Hamlet Commercial CH-3 in zoning bylaw 85-18. Engineering's comments are as follows. Town engineering has no comments with regard to the requested minor variance. However, the owner's engineering consultant has been made aware that the site surface grading drawings and detailed stormwater management reports addressing quantity and quality will need to be submitted for the proposed future development on this property as part of the building permit process, which must be reviewed and approved by the town engineer prior to the issuance of building permits. The owner's engineering consultant is aware that the town of Tecumseh recently completed a stormwater master plan for the Old Castle Hamlet, which includes the subject property. The stormwater master plan includes a holistic capacity review of the current storm sewer system and drains in this area with consideration of both current and future development. The owner's consultant is also aware that development at this site is subject to review and approval from the MTO. The stormwater requirements will ultimately need to satisfy the town of Tecumseh, MTO, and related approval agency. No comments from building, no comments from fire. IRCA's comments are as follows. The site is not located within a regulated area under the jurisdiction of IRCA Section 28. As a result, a permit will not be required from IRCA under the Conservation Authorities Act. However, IRCA wishes to be circulated in the process at the time of the site plan control and will defer further comment on stormwater management issues until the authority has had a chance to review specific details on the proposal through the site plan control process. No objections to the application for minor variance at this time. If this development is subject to site plan control, please circulate IRCA, the site plan application for further comment on stormwater management at the appropriate time, and no concerns from Bell Canada.
Okay, thank you very much. Steve Rock or David French?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee. I'm available to answer any questions. I'm David French with Story Samways Planning in Chatham, agent for Mr. Rock on this.
Okay. I have a person named Steve who's got no picture and no sound. Oh, there he is. He's coming on.
I'm Megan. I'm here on behalf of Steve. I'm his wife.
Oh, Megan. Okay.
But we're going to let David run with this one. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to jump in.
Okay. Just wanted the person that's paying the bill to be able to have their say if they wanted it.
Nice.
Okay. So do we have the only question I have in the circulation, you got nothing from the county or the province
No, we did not.
about entrances? Huh.
No,
Okay. Questions from, I'm sorry, David?
Yes, when the concept of developing this property first came up, the development team through the engineering team at Baird were definitely in contact with MTO to discuss permits. And that discussion actually led to the design of the site plan, which is the conceptual site plan, which is in front of you today, necessitating the need for at least the rear yard setback because of the constraints MTO is imposing on the property. So we have definitely been in contact with MTO.
Okay. All right, thank you. Committee, do you have any questions on this one? Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to confirm, although I do see it in the report, the application is subject to site plan control. And so if Mr. Jeffrey could confirm, MTO would be circulated as a part of site plan control approval anyway. So we would have MTO's comments in writing through that process, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, through you, Mr. Chair, this property is not subject to site plan control. The stormwater would have to be submitted as part of the building permit process, and MTO would have to approve that as well.
Okay.
So we're satisfied that they can address those technical issues through that process.
Okay.
Further to that, Mr. Chair, thank you. The application, the property, if we could just have an aerial shot on it would be, oh gosh, the rear yard setback, the adjacent property, specifically either the designation under the official plan or the zoning, what property would be impacted and essentially what's the land use for that property that's impacted by the variance in rear yard? Please and thank you.
I believe that's the fencing company that's behind there.
It's Super Siding. It's a siding company that's directly behind this property.
Yeah.
So that'd be 2145.
We used to do landscaping and stuff, right?
I believe so, yes. I believe Super Siding may have purchased it about 7 to 10 years ago.
Shows how long I've been not there.
May have been more recent, but at least 5.
Yeah, Bob Polyblank's house is the next one. And he had the landscaping company, and I think he sold it to those people. They did landscaping, and now it's been turned over to siding company, but that's the land directly behind this property.
Yeah.
Further to that, Mr. Chair, thank you for bringing up that aerial, Mr. Jeffrey. Is there any plans, maybe this to the applicant or to administration, are there any plans rather to install a fence or some buffer if required or if suitable? If it's a recommended, is there a plan to install a fence between the properties at the rear yard?
Although it hasn't been discussed, I know that my husband and I would have full intentions of putting a fence up. So unless we were told that that couldn't happen, we would likely want to put one up if allowed.
So to Mr. Jeffrey, is it a requirement?
We didn't hear that, Lori.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Yeah, I didn't hear that.
To you, is it a requirement? Even though this property is not subject to site plan control, would a fence be required?
Mr. Chair, it's not a requirement, but any fence that was proposed would have to be constructed in accordance with the town's fence bylaw.
Okay, Tony?
Lastly, Mr. Chair, thank you so much. In regards to the variance on the parking side of things. So the reports indicated, and I just want to hear if I could from either the applicant or representative, that the parking seems excessive, or rather the required parking seems excessive, and that because there will not be a large number of employees, the argument is that a large number of parking spaces is not required. Can we just hear a little bit from the applicant on vision for parking and number of employees? Because on one hand, we do hear that this is an employee generating application, which is a good news. But on the other hand, we're hearing in the report that not many employees will be on site. So a clarification if we could.
Yeah, I can clarify that as well. So it is a window and door residential replacement company. The majority of our employees are installers. So they'll only be on site for maybe a half an hour to an hour loading up in the morning between 7 and 8 a.m. And then they would be heading out to the residential homes. And so they don't actually work out of the building. And then the only employees that would be in the building during work hours, say between 9 and 5 p.m., would be a salesperson, a receptionist, and my husband. So right now we only have 2 employees that work in and out of the office, and the salesperson, he only uses the office as needed. So he's very rarely in the showroom himself. It's just by appointment only. So yes, this may generate more jobs down the road, but at most maybe another 1 person during work hours. If it were to generate more employees, it would just be another installation team, which again is only there early in the morning and then to unload again, say between 4 and 5 p.m. and then head home. So all the employees would not be present really at any one given time. And then, you know, your odd customer once in a while.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Tony, did you have your hand up before?
No, Mr. Chair, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Just to follow up a little bit on Lori's question in terms of how the operation works. Are there company vehicles that take material out to the homes?
Yes, yeah, we have trucks and trailers that are not parked there overnight. They're taken home to the individual installers' homes. So they come in the morning, they load up, they go to the homes where they're doing the work. So during the day, they're not parked in the parking lot. They'll come back at the end of the day, they'll unload, dump their garbage, and then they take their vehicles home. So during, you know, operation hours, the only vehicles that will be parked there for, say, an 8-hour period would be maybe 2 employees, my husband who owns the company and a receptionist.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you might have company vehicles. Anybody else? No, nothing? Motion? Tony?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we accept A 1122. The business is matching surrounding area. I think it'd be a great addition to the area, and it's nice to have another business opening up in the town of Tecumseh.
Support? Lori? Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Not sure, there were conditions or not? Probably not.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to Chad administration for the work on this, and to the committee. You have a wonderful evening.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Minor variance. No, that's that one. Minor variance for Faiz Al-Harda. Al-Harbi. Al-Harbi. I got it. Took me a while.
Yes, you got it.
All right, Donna?
Application for minor variance, Faze Al Harbi and Hanan Al Willi, 3267 South Talbot Road. The purpose of the application is to request relief from subsection 15.1.2C of zoning bylaw 85-18, which permits the construction of an additional dwelling for resident staff as supplementary housing to an agricultural use, in addition to an existing dwelling on the farm. The applicant is seeking relief to allow the existing dwelling on the 4.4 hectare subject property to act as supplementary housing for resident staff associated with an existing equestrian facility and a new dwelling to be constructed as the primary dwelling to be occupied by the owner. The lands are designated agricultural in the Tecumseh official plan and zoned agricultural in the Sandwich South zoning bylaw 85-18. No comment or no concerns from engineering, no comments from building, no comments from fire. IRCA's comments are as follows. The site is not located within a regulated area that is under the jurisdiction of IRCA Section 28 of the Conservation Authorities Act. As a result, a permit is not required from IRCA. No objection to the requested minor variance at this time, and no concerns from Bell Canada.
Okay, Faiz, did you wanted to add any comments to this?
No, I think this summarizes the whole, excuse me, summarizes the whole application. Thank you, Donna.
Okay. What I didn't see on the drawing, some of the committee, unless I'm blind, which is possible, is where the newly constructed house might land. Where it might go.
I did submit that. It would go right next to the existing house. They're probably separated by, I think it was roughly, I can't remember the exact distance, but 30 or 40 feet or something like that. Actually, it's 60 feet. So 30 feet for the existing house setback and 30 feet for the new house. So it's 60 feet.
And you would use the same entrance? I think
there is an existing culvert that's you could see on the map between the two. Yes, exactly where the arrow is. So that will be used for the new house.
Okay. Ready? Lori?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question to administration. As far as the use, do we have justification, or maybe it's confirmation I'm thinking of, or are we satisfied, is administration satisfied that the dwelling will be used for farm help?
Through you, Mr. Chair, administration is satisfied, but it's important that the committee is also satisfied. Mr. Al-Harvey did submit some correspondence justifying the need for this, but perhaps he'd like to elaborate if given a chance to do so.
Sure, I'll be happy to. The farm is a horse farm. We've invested heavily in this horse farm. We've built a state-of-the-art indoor riding arena with a lot of new safety features that did cost quite a bit, including like importing a sand additive to reduce dust. We also did extensive excavation to run underground water pipes and electrical. Our intention is to it's actually a riding school that we started as a business in 2020, but due to the pandemic, we couldn't really start lessons until this month. So we do have a coach and we have students. We would need the residents in order to house a trainer who would help us with the horses and also with training. As you may know, the horses require a lot of care, and it's usually divided throughout the day. So you do 4 or 5 hours in the day, 2 hours midday, and then a few hours in the evening, and then late at night. And so with the rising gas prices, difficulty finding good help, it is extremely challenging to find someone who would fill in those gaps at separate times. And so the existing house is just it's actually 1,150 square feet. And so it's not a huge house. It's a small house, but it has excellent bones. It's actually, I'm living in it right now. And so we were hoping that we would be able to house a local family, typically, one of our equestrian, locals with their family that would help us, take care of the horses. And so we'll be creating a job and housing for this individual and their family. And so that is the main purpose of the use of the land.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ensure that the use, that essentially administration was satisfied. So thank you for the explanation and no further questions. Thank you.
Anyone else? Tony?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess I have 3 questions here. If you can elaborate on the number of people that will be staying in the worker house is one question. On the application, I believe you have that there is a well on the property. If you can give more detail as to the location of the well. And the third one is, where would the new septic system be for the house?
So I don't really have a number of occupants. It would be one family. So typically a candidate for this job would be a young equestrian. Typically it would be a young female equestrian. So would be her significant other, and if they have kids. And now in terms of the location of the septic tank, I don't know if you can bring up the map. It's located between the 2 ponds on the property. And so it's an existing well, and it's an excellent one. We didn't dig a new well. We just revived the existing well. I'll just wait for the, yeah, so in between, there's a small island in between the 2 big ponds. And so we basically just replaced the pump and ran pipes to the building. The existing house is supplied by municipal water, and the new house will be supplied by municipal water. And I forgot the third question.
And that's the location of the septic system, of the new septic system that would be there to serve the new house.
Yeah, so it would be, so the new house, there's a hill to the left of the existing house. it will go right where the, yes, right where the mark is here. And the septic tank will be facing the road. So in between the road and the house. We did submit a drawing to the building department last week for the septic tank.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, it's motion time. Lori.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the case of, which I just had in front of me, application A-12-22, it is in my opinion that the application is desirable for the use of the land, meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and the OP, and is in minor in nature. And for those reasons, I move to approve the application. Yeah, and that's it.
Supported by Paul. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that reached the end of our applications. There are no deferrals, although there may be down the road. No unfinished business that I know of. New business, you were circulated, I think, with details from Donna about possible conference in the fall, the end of September, I believe. The council kind of jumped their gun during their budget deliberations and decided that because of COVID, we probably wouldn't have one, so they cut our budget amount way back. So the question is, what we've done in the past when, and you're not obligated to go by this, but done in the past is that anybody who wants to go goes, and the people that go share up to the maximum of the budget, and the rest are on their own for. So we can mitigate that by riding there together or whatever else you can think of. But so the first question is, given those dates at the end of September, you have them, Donna?
Wednesday, September 28th to Friday, September 30th.
Yeah. So it's the very end of, and it's where? It's in
Kawarthas, which is basically Peterborough.
Peterborough. Okay. So Donna has done a little spreadsheet about what the normal cost would be. And we can divide it by however many members are going and go from there. Part of my suggestion would be the first thing that you would forego is a per diem because it's taxable. Everything else is an expense and doesn't require any tax to be paid on that repayment. But your per diem, the $200 a day or whatever it is taxable at your income tax rate. So that would be the first thing to say we'll forgo. But before we jump into that can of worms, there's two questions. How many people want to go or can go, are able to go? And can we beat up Brian and Chad to get more money out of the council for us? Laurie.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I see a couple of us are not here tonight. I just want to throw it out there. I will not be able to attend. If any of the folks that are here tonight or the others that are not with us, the other members that are not with us would like to attend, the best case scenario would be that you have a -1 being me, but thank you for the opportunity to the town of Tecumseh for always offering that opportunity for its members of the COA.
Well, and I think it's really good for all committee members to go if they can. There is valuable stuff that you learn there, especially in this day and age of infilling housing and so on, we're going to run up against. So that's one, but the rest of you, would you let me know within the next couple of weeks whether you would be wanting to go or not? And on that basis, we'll develop a budget and then you can rethink whether you want to go or not. How's that?
Mr. Chair, is there an electronic option this year, or is it strictly in person?
I don't believe so, but Donna, what do you think?
Well, based on the information that I've looked up, it's in person. Originally, it was going to be held at a different location, but they canceled it. And then with COVID starting to open up, they ended up by booking in Peterborough. So there is no online option.
They used to have a fall training session of some kind, right? Wasn't a conference, but it was a fall thing.
That's right, Tom.
Yeah, so this is now replacing that, I think, for this year at least. So I'll leave you with that. Can we well, I'll talk to the other two to see what they want to do. Give them the same spiel. Is there any possibility of more money, Brian?
I thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the only reason I stayed on to this meeting was for that question. I would say, I never wanting to speak for council, but I would say it's highly unlikely. And I think I heard someone explain at the beginning, it might have been yourself, the budgets were set at a time, it was unclear what was happening. And it seemed the potential for COVID to disrupt conferences was occurring again. And I just want the committee to know that it's not exclusively the Committee of Adjustment. There were reductions that took place across the board on the assumption a bulk of the conferences would probably be, if not fully virtual, they would provide a virtual option that we could all utilize. I know that some are still going that way. They offer the two, and I'm not, it's not clear to me. I was just looking on the website to see if that was an option. It's interesting that it's not. But the budget has been set, and I did ask this up the chain of command as it is, and it seems that this is the budget that we have to work with the committee, and across the organization we're working through that. And I guess I would only commit to for next year. We would certainly be looking to bring the committee back to a proper budget to offer you all the opportunity to go. We know that it's very valuable. And the town generally is very supportive of it. So yeah, apologies about that. It's an unintended consequence of, just trying to be very cautious and conservative at the time of budgeting, thinking it made sense, and it hasn't worked out as we had planned totally. And this committee faces it, as do some other areas of the organization. So it's not just a Committee of Adjustment, it's all conference budgets this year.
Yeah.
But hopefully when you get the numbers, you can, we have found a path forward. There were tougher times with this committee many years ago now, but so hopefully we can find a path forward here once we know the numbers.
Okay. All right, so that's all I have. Anybody else have anything? Under new business? If not, can we adjourn? Paul? Tony? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you. Waiting for the